Coming up, 9 and 3 versus 10 and 2. The ultimate title fight for supreme control of the steering wheel. Fact me. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. But first, I want to thank you if you took part in the lively debate online after my very first pro tip, which was about holding the steering wheel for optimal control. I'm gratified that so many people took this issue so seriously, and I just wish we could get through to the other, 90% of the population who kind of think it's cool to drive like that, and pay attention to something else, not the dynamic driving environment. So thank you for taking part in that debate. But there were some dissenters, and I don't want to put shit on the dissenters at all. I'm extremely grateful that anyone wants to take part in a debate about holding the damn steering wheel. But I do want to talk about that dissent because it points to a greater depth of this whole issue. And if you really do care about car control, then this stuff matters, So let's talk about some of those dissenters. Here's some I prepared earlier. One from a guy named Jonah Richards, who says, John, you really shouldn't have your thumbs locked around the wheel like that. Your thumbs should be on the front face of the wheel. This prevents ripping your thumbs off. Ripping them off, that must hurt. Ripping your thumbs off if you should hit a curb or other object, causing the wheel to spin suddenly. That's Jonah's view. Michael Hutton says, sorry to inform you, but the car manufacturer wants you to have your hands at 10 and 2. Really? I did not know that. Plus, keep your thumbs on the humps at those positions outside of the steering wheel to prevent your thumbs, quote, from being broken or removed. Removed. Pain, once again. If the airbag deploys. This is according to Michael. He says, look it up. They changed it about 3 or 4 years ago. James Clark, another guy with an interesting view on this, says, hate to disagree, John, but the position you are using in the video will rip off your thumbs. Again, ouch. Or break them severely if the airbag deploys. Did you notice that the wheel you are holding has bulges at the 10 and 2 o'clock positions? Yes, I did. I noticed that. They nearly all do. However, he says that's because the lead hand should be either the left hand at the 10 o'clock position and the right hand at 4 o'clock, or if leading with the right hand, 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock positions. These have been the standard positions, according to James, for best control of a vehicle for decades. I did not know that. A quick shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Drone Services, who picked the best name of all time for my next correspondent, Alien. Alien Drone Services says, why are there bolsters at 10 and 2? Well, we'll get into that. And Ast5515, an interesting name, says, in my country, you fail your driving test if you are not holding the wheel at 10 and 2. Good place to live, eh? Well, let's get into all of that. Steering is something that evolves in time. So if you're locked into this 1950s and 1960s paradigm where steering was largely mechanical and where the diameter of the wheel had to be sufficient to give you the mechanical advantage to exert torque at low speeds, for example, 3-point turning or U-turning in a tight environment, then I think you have to brush that aside and let it all go, because in a modern car, it's not about effort, it's about precise motor control. And vehicles only have 3 basic control points of architecture. They start and they stop and they turn. So you've got an accelerator and a brake and a steering wheel, and that basically is the extent of the control architecture. Steering's got a lot of nuance built into it, though, I think you'd agree. And if you haven't drilled down into all of this stuff, I have. And it's like this, okay? You need precise angular displacement. There's one angular displacement of the steering wheel that will deliver the yaw response you need out of the body for any particular dynamic cornering situation that you're in at any moment in time. So in order to get that, you need to be able to exert the precise motor control, the load that you need to get the wheel to that point, and you need to be able to feel the feedback. So that's 3 different things that comprise the nuance of steering: the displacement, the manual effort required to get it there, and also the feedback, which is the mechanical load on the wheels coming back through the shaft of the wheel and into your hands via the circumference. And the other thing you do is you need to be safe. In the event of a crash, you need to maximize your own safety. And we are in a BMW 530D right at the moment for two reasons. The first reason is it's convenient. I've got this on evaluation at the moment. There'll be a review up in due course. The second reason is that BMW is very true philosophically to its aspiration to build what it claims to be the ultimate driving machines. I think they do that pretty well. And this means that all aspects of the construction to do with driving are extremely well thought out. They don't guess this, they don't wing it, they do a lot of research. As a journalist working for Channel 7, I have been to the BMW head office and their R&D facilities in and around Munich. We did a few stories there for 7 News, and I was extremely impressed with the technical types that I met. They take this stuff extremely seriously, and there's nothing frivolous about the design of a steering wheel. When you talk about the user interface in modern vernacular, it's almost always in the context of smartphones and tablets and a graphical user interface. But ergonomics is very important. Ergonomics is all about the design of machines for human interaction. And the user interface here is this. So let's do a thought experiment about the design of this steering wheel, which I'd suggest is not arbitrary, it's very well thought out. If you were an alien from Alpha Centauri and you teleported yourself in your starship into Earth orbit and you did all that, requisite probing of hot young babes to figure out all about human anatomy. You did all that. You figured out human anatomy. I understand that's quite common. If you do that, then you come and you investigate the machines that we use. The most common one is the car. You'd look at the steering wheel and you join up the dots between your investigation about human anatomy and the design of the wheel. And using your advanced alien intelligence, the only conclusion you can draw is that the steering wheel is designed to be held like this. If it was designed to be held in any other way, it would be a different size and shape. It just would. So this is like a superficial examination of how does a whole bunch of propeller-headed engineers and designers figure out how best to design a steering wheel to be used in what they can claim with their hands on their heart to be the ultimate driving machines. All right, so that's observation number one. This is how it's designed. There's ridges underneath the wheel here for your fingertips. Your thumbs go in there. It fits the human hand almost like a glove. It's perfect. It's perfect. If you hold the wheel here, I'd suggest that this is a concession in design terms to people who really believe that 10 and 2 is the best position, but really it's not. So this is kind of a design concession here. It's okay to hold the wheel like this. This fits like a glove. Join the dots there. The other thing I'd suggest is, flashing back to when I was an engineer, I studied ergonomics at university, I'd suggest that in terms of precise motor control, you achieve precise motor control when you grip like this. And this position allows you to grip like that. It's not clearly designed, as some of the correspondents allege, to have your thumbs here, because this is not a part of the wheel that's designed to hold your thumbs comfortably. Now, in terms of these allegations about ripping your thumbs off, having your thumbs physically torn off from your hands in a crash, I'm tipping that is very painful. So what I did was in the time available, I went and had a look for any evidence of these kinds of injuries. Thumbs being severed from the human hand by virtue of the deployment of the airbag, which comes out of this little boss in the center here, or by virtue of any other sort of crash interaction. Let's say the wheel whips around violently in a clockwise direction. This thumb ridge here whips around here in a fraction of a second, hits this thumb and severs it or breaks it. Now, I could not find any evidence of these alleged injuries. And I would suggest that if you wake up in hospital with your cognitive facilities intact after an airbag deployment crash and both thumbs are broken, you've got, your hands in plaster down to the middle of your forearm or something, I'd suggest that you write a letter to the car manufacturer, and obviously with your elbows or speech to text, because typing's not going to work for a while. But that letter should say, it should start like this: "Thank you so much for saving my life in this crash. I so appreciate not having my brain scrambled by the impact forces." It's that simple. Thumb injuries are extremely minor in the context of an airbag deployment event, which is really you being on the brink of life and death. The Grim Reaper is in the green room in that situation, and he is waiting to chalk you up. So if you emerge with your brain intact, you should be overjoyed, even if your hands are in plaster. Anyway, let's think about the wheel whipping around. That could happen, but I don't find any evidence of that in any modern literature. I'd suggest that in a crash, if you're holding the wheel in this way, the most common mode of thumb injury is not actually the wheel whipping around, but inertial forces acting on you during rapid deceleration. So what could hypothetically happen is that you might be decelerating at 60, 70 Gs, something like that, very briefly, but there are immense forces pushing you forward thanks to Isaac Newton. And in this case, your hand could come up like this and your thumb could be injured in this way, almost like the jujutsu move from hell, you know? That's a possibility, but I'd suggest a minor one in exchange for fine motor control, which might help you in many situations avoid the collision in the first place. The other kind of injury that I'd suggest that was alleged by those correspondents is airbag deployment injuries of your hands. There's nothing magical about airbag deployment. The airbag just comes out of this boss at high speed and then it expands thanks to the laws of physics, you know, Pascal, Bernoulli, all those dudes. So it's shaped like a donut, except without the hole, and it just comes out like this. So there's two modes of its expansion. It comes towards you, and at the same time it expands radially. In the context of your thumbs and injuring those, coming towards you does not matter, but expanding radially might. So let's think about that. If your thumb is locked into the wheel in this position, and it's not around the wheel like this, it's locked in the thumb rest, so it's just inside here. If the airbag expands out, it may hit the heel of your hand in this position and it may push it laterally to the side. So you might cop an impact here, and this is likely to wrench your hand from the wheel, but I don't see that injuring you anytime soon. So I think that's a remote risk. What's far more likely to injure you, at least in my view, in the context of airbag deployment, is if you're in a right-hand drive market like Australia and your hand is at the 2 o'clock position, or if you're in a left-hand drive market like most of the rest of the world and your hand's up here at 10, then the radial expansion of the airbag is going to be from the center to the edge at every point of the wheel. So radial expansion like this. If you radially push your hand from the 2 o'clock position, bam, you're going to hit the A pillar, and that could injure you severely. Same thing on the other side of the car, bam, you're going to hit the A pillar on the left side if you're in America or somewhere like that. So I'd suggest that there is more danger in holding the wheel like this than there is in this, in the case of airbag deployment. The final thing I wanted to mention to you is, and most people never get this, even people who do many advanced driving courses are never told this. What is the precise fine motor control for cornering? Okay, if you care about driving, this is something you absolutely need to know. You've got your hands on the wheel. Let's just suggest that 9 and 3 is absolutely the best way to do this. 9 and 3, you're going to drive around a left-hand corner. Obviously your hands move in this way. Let's start her up and just do that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to drive around a left-hand bend. Obviously the wheel moves in this way. That's fine. But what hand is doing the work? Okay, if you're essentially along for the ride with your left hand and you're pushing like a boxer, that's not the way to do this. What you've really got to do if you want to be an ace driver is right hand just along for the ride, doing bugger all essentially, left hand pulling on the way in and relaxing on the way out. And all the right hand does is follow without doing any work. And that's because of fine motor control. you've got more precision pulling in towards your body, more control, more finesse if you're doing it this way and then relaxing this way than if you're pushing like a boxer and then pulling back ready to go again. And the same thing on the other side. In a right hand corner, right hand does all the work, left hand just follows. So left hand does the work in left hand bends, right hand does the work in right hand bends. And this may require some neural reprogramming for you if you've been punching like a boxer and steering this way since the dawn of time. Let's think about the design of this wheel. There is a thumb place here, and this makes these tensile forces easy to apply. Not the same if you're gripping with your thumb on top. That's not as easy to do. And I'd suggest that when the chips are down and, you know, a kid is suddenly in front of you and this is a life or death situation, or some animal, an elk in Sweden or something, hops out, walks out, whatever they do, kangaroos hop out in Australia. In this situation, you need to stack the deck in your favor. Everything has to be right to get out of it. So your hands have to be in the right position. You must look where the car is to go, because if you look at the animal or the kid, you'll hit it. And then you must exert precise motor control to swerve, avoid, and then back where you want the car to go and recover. If the wrong hand is doing the work, if your hands are like this, if you're all over the place, this is not going to end well. And this is why this stuff matters, because these emergencies, they don't knock on the door and say, hey, in half an hour's time, big event, get ready. You're just suddenly confronted with this nightmare scenario, and it's all down to you to deal with. And I'd suggest that all of these things, knowing the nuances properly, having yourself in the right position, knowing where to look, using the right hand to do the maneuver and then again to recover if necessary, that's all absolutely essential. And just to be clear, I'm not saying in a left-hand turn, take your right hand off. I'm just saying have your right hand on the wheel ready. Just don't do anything with it. Let the arm with the fine motor control do the work and relax, and then the other way, do the work and relax. And the idling hand does exactly that. It's along for the ride. Anyway, I hope this helps. I'd be very, very interested to hear your feedback on all of this. I hope this clarifies some of the points that perhaps weren't addressed properly in the first pro tip earlier in the week. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm John Cadogan. I'll see you next time.